Friends, a major reform in income tax has been implemented from October, and this reform is expected to now be duplicated in other tax laws. E-assessments, popularly called faceless assessments. A lot of ecosystem has changed due to implementation of this faceless assessment. The main motive behind faceless assessment, or the main target of faceless assessment, is that the person who is finding out issues in the assessment would not be interacting directly with the assessee. This is the prime target of this faceless assessments. Around 58,000 cases have been selected for faceless assessments across the country, out of which 3,500 are companies assessees. Faceless assessments, to start with, would apply to few incomes, to few cases, to few territorial entities, or to few entities themselves. So there is a pick and choose initially for faceless assessments. As I said, the ecosystem has gone through a dramatic change, and there are 6 units or centers which have been identified. These 6 centers or units will take care of the entire faceless assessments, and these units, although independent, but they would be working in close coordination with each other in a completely IT driven environment, where there would be complete audit trails regarding the interaction of these units. First is the National Assessment Center, which will be located in Delhi. This assessment center would be facilitating this whole ecosystem or the whole procedure for faceless assessment. Then there would be regional assessment centers at the regional levels. These assessment centers would be facilitating the faceless assessments at the regional level. Now 4 important units: technical unit, review unit, assessment unit, and verification unit. Let us see what are the roles of this unit before we go into the workflow of the faceless assessments. First, the assessment unit. The role of this unit is restricted to identification of points or issues, seeking information, and analysis of the material furnished, and finally coming out with the draft assessment order. It will not interact with the assessees, right? Next is the verification unit. Now, in case this assessment unit needs to do certain verification, it cannot do it itself. It has to take the help of a verification unit, which would be seeking information and verifying. What are the roles of verification unit? It is to perform verification, which includes inquiry, cross verification, examination, or including examination of witnesses and recording statements. This is not all. If this assessment unit needs to strengthen its hands by requiring certain legal issues, certain case laws, certain forensic reports, certain IT driven tools, all of this technical issues would be addressed by the technical unit, which would strengthen the hands of the assessment unit. Last, this draft assessment order of the assessment unit would not go to the assessee. It would be reviewed by the review unit. Now, what are the powers of the review unit? They are very wide, mind that. It is not limited to only arithmetical accuracy checking. What can the review unit do with the assessment order? It can either accept or it can get the assessment order modified. What would it check? It would check material evidences which are brought on record or not. It would check whether relevant facts have been recorded in the order or not, relevant case laws have been recorded in the order or not, and whether arithmetical accuracy is correct or not. Now, what is the workflow? First, the National E-Assessment Unit, which would be a coordinator of between all these units and the SSEs, would issue a 143.2 notice to the SSE. Now, online, you would be seeing when you log in into the Income Tax India e-assessment website, then a tab of e-proceeding has already been created. The entire assessment would happen through this tab. So through this tab, it would be notified or the notice would be served under 143.2, giving the reason or the issue why a assessment needs to be done, and within 15 days the assessee needs to reply to this notice. In case the National E-Assessment Authority, through its tools which would include artificial intelligence etc., it still feels that an assessment needs to be done where discretion would be very limited, then it would identify again through automated tools an assessment unit in one of the regions. Now, it would allocate the case to the assessment unit. Assessment unit comes out with issues or pointers. If it requires verification of certain documents, then again it raises a request to the National E-Assessment Authority. This National E-Assessment Authority takes through automated tools without discretion of any person. It takes the help of a verification unit which requires certain documents to be verified from the SSE, which requires mails to and fro with the SSE. In case the assessment unit requires certain technical help, again the National E-Assessment Authority allocates a technical unit to provide such help. After the verification unit verifies all the records, it submits its report to the assessment unit. Once the assessment unit does the assessment, it comes out with a draft assessment order, which again goes to the National E-Assessment Authority, and in case through its tools the National E-Assessment Authority is of the opinion that the draft assessment order requires review, it allocates it to the review unit for reviewing the assessment order. In case certain modification is required, again it goes back to the assessment unit and it is modified. Now once the order is ready, it goes to the SSE again through the e-proceeding tab on the e-filing website of the Income Tax Department. The SSE is given an opportunity of being heard, it makes a representation, and finally the final assessment order is issued with or without modification. Now, what is the role of the Jurisdictional Assessment Officer? In the whole process, his role is not there until, mind that there is a provision which even states that the National E-Assessment Authority during this assessment may bring into picture the JAO if it feels necessary. But otherwise, after the assessment order is finalized, it goes to the JAO for penal provisions, for appeal effect orders, etc. The appeals with relation to these faceless assessments would still continue to be with the CIT appeals, etc. Now, an important question is, what would be the email ID through which these correspondences would happen? Mind that this email ID is very, very important. The email ID would be what is there on the portal, or it can be the email ID which has been submitted in the last income tax return, or in case of a person having Aadhaar, the email ID which has been submitted while making the Aadhaar or the PAN card. If it is a company, the email ID which has been given on the MCA portal, or an email ID given to any other authority through which the income tax department receives this email ID. So the communication would be on email, and a very important way of notice is an alert on SMS. After every email or after uploading every document on the e-proceeding tab, you would get an alert on your registered mobile through an SMS. And all of this would tantamount to service of notice to the assessees. So the assessment is going to happen in a completely e-format, where the main target would be that the assessment unit and the assessees do not interact. In case an interaction is required with the verification unit, a physical interaction, it will be through video conferencing, and CBDT would notify such video conferencing centers where the assessee has to come, and through video conferencing it will be heard by the verification unit. All exchange of information, it has been notified, would be only and only through the electronic mode, and there would be an audit trail which would be there with the National E-Assessment Authority. So friends, this is the whole ecosystem and the procedures of faceless assessments, and we expect that with this the corruptions which were happening during assessment would be completely nullified. Thank you very much.